When the sun sets, the undead awaken. To slake their hunger, they feed upon the herd of unaware mortals. Right beneath our noses, the kindred clash against their rivals as they vie for control of the city of San Francisco. Are you strong enough to cheat Final Death and see another night? Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game from Renegade Game Studios.
Good evening and welcome to Vampire Wednesday. I, as usual, am Matt Holland, and I'm here with a somewhat fresh face. Dan has joined us before, but I'm with Dan Blanchette, who is the designer of the Dragon and the Rogue, this new expansion for Rivals. Dan, how are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Awesome. It's always great to have, the actual designer's perspective and just a fresh face, a little bit of variety, because while Hyra is plenty handsome, I'm sure people appreciate mixing it up now and then. We have Lorcan Lore. Oh man, I'm going to screw this up. Lorcan Lore Breaker doing my job here and sharing information on the upcoming Prince events in chat. September 3rd, we've got Madrid. I've said it a lot of times, but I'll reiterate it. It's a 1v1 event, so make sure you are building your deck with that in mind. It is the only Prince event that is 1v1. September 10th in Manchester, England. I know that the Scottish contingent of Vampire Rivals players is apparently coming down to play in that, so they should have a nice time there. September 11th in Brussels, in Belgium. And then September 24th, a little late edition here in Magdeburg, Germany. So still a chance for you guys overseas to pick up a Prince title and join the sort of pantheon of vampiric royalty who's going to be getting their own card. I think that's going to be pretty fun as we start to get into the actual design process and art process for all these players, which is kind of going on behind the scenes. And it will be very fun to share all those with you all in the coming months and probably about a year before we actually see them, like we did for Josh Johnson, our very first Prince. But big news today, Dragon and the Rogue is up for pre-order. That is the 5th expansion for Vampire Rivals, and that adds Ravnos and Tzimisce, right, Dan?
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about the Ravnos and Tzimisce. What makes them special? How are they, what's their thing? Tremere, their pre-con deck, and then the thing was the retainers. Venture was titles. What's the Tzimisce and Ravnos?
Well, the Ravnos are kind of like the trickster clans, so we have a lot of fun surprises with them, with traps and ways that they handle reactions. They're also wanderers, so they kind of move about. The Tzimisce are actually kind of the opposite. They kind of stay in one place. They like to collect things. They kind of take set collection to a whole new level. They're very much into possessing things and demodifying their body and ghouls. And there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon with them as well.
And I mean, just going through the cards very briefly while I prepared for this, the art gets pretty weird in cases. So I'm excited to see what those cards do and what the community thinks of them, because there is some. There's I don't know, things I did not expect to see necessarily when going through. As always, if you guys pre-order the Dragon and the Rogue, you will get the 2-card promo pack. This one features the kind of the monstrous alt arts of Angela and Stefan Seltradat, the 2 leaders in the pre-con decks for both Tzimisce and Ravnos. They look pretty cool. We can actually throw that up on screen, Katie. You can see the alt arts here for these guys. And then,
to be fair, Angela, even her normal card is pretty monstrous as well. So
we're going to see that in just a second too. I think that frame's a little bit off. There we go. Perfect. And Katie, can you stretch that vertically? It looks a little bit smushed too. The aspect ratio of that share. But that will come with your pre-order at no additional cost. And we're going to be previewing the cards for Dragon the Rogue over a little bit longer period of time compared to what we usually do. Taking a few more weeks. Today, we're just going to be doing the Tzimisce agenda, haven, and characters. So the actual rest of the pre-con deck will come another time. We've just got a little bit more time for the pre-order period, and we're going to be doing also some preview articles to go with a lot of these too. So just a heads up, you're not going to see everything in just 2 weeks or 3 weeks like we have in some of the past iterations. And then one more bit of housekeeping. We are not going to be streaming September 7th and September 28th. We've got folks who will be out of the office and unable to stream. So, have a free night there. Go play Rivals at your local game store instead. And we will be back all the rest of the weeks in September and stretching into October for Month of Darkness. But let's take a look, Dan, at the agenda, the new agenda that comes in the pre-con deck for the Simitsi.
Yeah, check out that art. It's kind of creepy, I guess. Is a good way to describe it.
It definitely gives me a weird vibe.
Yeah, those are the triplets. So as I mentioned before in the overview, the Simitsi are kind of about collecting things. They want to possess stuff. And this is one form of collection, as you can just see in the art, these triplets. The completionist kind of represents that aspect of this clan where you're trying to basically set, collect, and attach cards to other cards so that at the start of your turn, you have as many cards as you can that can trigger each one of these. So it's just on this one, at the start of your turn, for each card you control that is not in your haven and that has 3+ attachments, gain 1 agenda. So, for example, the normal way you would collect cards is you would maybe have retainers attached to your characters.
Sure, leave them in the streets or something.
Yeah, so this one you'd have to bring them into the streets. What's cool about the Simitsi is they have a lot of other ways to collect things. We'll get into that more in future streams when we start kind of diving into the library for them. But this kind of gives you a clue on what they're doing. But they're going to have other ways to collect cards, to attach things outside of just adding retainers to characters.
Yeah, Sealy Faye brings up the fact that it's only 1 agenda for having 3 or more attachments, but points out then that there is no per turn cap. It's not get 1 agenda if you have it doesn't cap at 1 agenda. If I had 3 vampires out in the street that all have 3+ attachments, I'm going to score 3.
Exactly.
And it's at the start of my turn.
And as we get into the characters, you'll see that they're very well suited to kind of manipulating card attachments. So they can move them around. So you can kind of optimize that collection strategy and try to have the most sets possible to trigger as much agenda as possible. It might take some buildup, but once you start getting your engine going, it can really pay off for you.
If somebody puts a curse on my character, that will still count, right? Because I control the card and it has an attachment, even though I don't control the attachment.
That's a really good question. I think we even had a FAQ about that one
in the rule book.
Nice. Yeah. So it does. I think any card that has an attachment, I think, will count for that as long as it's not in your haven or torpor. So
sure.
And as you'll see when we get into the library, there are going to be lots of other ways to bring cards, to attach cards. You're going to be able to kind of upgrade your haven, attach cards to that, for example. We're going to get into ghouls, which have their own attachments. So you'll see all the ways that are possible.
All right. So we are going to go jump into the characters now. And we have a little bonus surprise that Dan wanted to show because it is useful to understand the context of what these different characters are trying to do. That looks pretty good, Katie. Thank you. So, Angela, this is, you weren't kidding. This is the more family-friendly version of the art.
This is not the alt art, but I think this could have been the alt art.
This would be the alt art for most of the vampires, I think.
That's what I'm talking about. But Angela looks really cool. I love how the artist styled her. So you'll see right away there's some new things about this character. There's a new keyword, possessive. It says when entering torpor, you can retain 1 attached card. Now, normally when you go into torpor, you can only retain a title, but everything else, gets discarded or burned. Mm-hmm. With possessives, you can retain an additional card. So if you actually had a title, you can technically retain 2 cards.
Okay, that was going to be my first question. Yeah. Does it stacks with the
with titles?
Yeah. With the title, and so animalism was that fortitude and protean?
Dominate and protean.
Dominate.
Yep. So okay. Those are the 3 disciplines of this clan. Obviously, Angela has all of them because she's the big 6. Her ability says the first time you attach a card to any card, including ghouls, which is spoiler alert, each turn you'll draw 1 card. So she'll trigger off of attaching to anything. And like I mentioned before, there's going to be lots of cards to attach cards to, not just defeating mortals and attaching retainers. So of course, that's a very common way, or attaching animals. You're going to see there's a lot of ways that she could trigger this. And we add including ghouls because as Matt will show you in a second, we actually have a new type of card called a ghoul. And it kind of acts as a character. And normally you don't trigger attach effects when you attach cards to it, but this is like one of the exceptions. So to stay on Angela for a second, she has 2 physical, 0 social, and 1 mental. So just standard
and 6 blood
spread.
potency. So the big leader that we're used to in a lot of the clans.
Yeah, she'll be a solid leader no matter what your strategy is, but especially with the completionist agenda, and even one of the other ones that we'll talk about when we get into the crypt.
Nice. Satyr Jester mentioning nice art. I agree. Anastasia does like super good art for these vampires. Sure. And I do love the similarity between the 2 alt arts and the regular ones. And it just, that's kind of fun. And then ghouls. Yeah, ghouls. The Tzimisce, as I understand, do some pretty weird stuff with their ghouls.
Yep. Like
body horror, creepy, just very different. And a good example of them is Vozd.
Your guess is as good as mine, but however you want to pronounce that.
It's a little bit like John Carpenter's The Thing looking here.
Yeah. So there's going to be two different kinds of ghouls in this game. This is one of them. This is the bigger of the 2. This one is kind of like an amalgam of like a lot of mortals fused together. You can imagine taking like 12 mortals and just combining them using flesh crafting and vicissitude and these abilities that the Tzimisce have to kind of just shape flesh. And so they create these monstrosities and these, this Leviathan. This card, you'll play it and you'll immediately attach a retainer that you have in your coterie that's attached to someone else. So you'll basically, it's like you're taking one of your servants and you're saying, I'm going to shape you into something else. And so you become this thing. And what's cool is you can add as many retainers as you want, even when you first play it. Like if you already have 3 or 4 retainers in your coterie attached, you can like put them all onto this at one time and just build it up really big. And for each one you attach, you're going to gain blood and a physical attribute, two physical plus 2 blood. So imagine having like 5 retainers on this. You got like 10 physical.
Insane.
Yeah, it takes a while to build up, and your foe would be a fool until you build your ghoul that big. But if you did manage to build it up over time, you would probably be unstoppable. But it's fun to try.
So it's the attachment is you could do it when you play it, but also later on you can attach more of you.
Yes, once you have these ghouls out,
more.
Exactly. Once you have ghouls out there are ways to attach additional retainers and to build them up. And they're like characters in your coterie. They act like characters in most ways. We'll get into more of that when we get into the library. I'll let Matt Hyra kind of go into the finer details of ghouls. But this is a good overview. Also, I wanted to bring out, this is an example of another type of card that you can collect things with, like for your completionist agenda. Like you have 3 retainers attached to this.
Yeah.
That would trigger, assuming this was not in your haven. Because this is like a character. You can move it in and out of your haven. So it would need to be outside your haven.
And I assume that is covered in like the general ghoul rules in the rule book. Yep.
There's a beefy little section just on ghouls that you'll have fun trying to decipher. And but once you figure it out, it'll be really fun.
Coyote asking, Coyote, who is Jacob Martin Jr. the third, just want to fix my mistake on his name from our Gen Con episode last week.
I thought it was Joseph.
Oh my God, I did it wrong. Son of a gun, it's Joseph Martin Jr. the third.
Sorry, man. I had to call you out on it.
No, Coyote did too. Oh, now I feel even worse. I'm just going to stop trying to fix that. But Joseph had the question. See, that's what my brain does when I know like I've got nothing wrong so much. I then think about it so much and I switch it. And I've done that several times over my life with predictably embarrassing results. Joseph asks, Coyote asks, does it have other attributes like mental at all? Or is that a thing for maybe other ghouls or future cards possibly? It's
possibly a future thing. You'll hear more about ghouls when we go into the library of this particular clan. But as you can see, they have nothing. But they do have some abilities. They have the ability to play some attack cards that have 0 that require no BP. Their blood is going to be whatever is going to be equal to whatever retainers are attached to it. But it's not gonna have attributes like normal characters would. It has the physical one, but not like mental and social. That's what these Tzimisce ghouls. Now, obviously, down the road, who knows what'll happen?
Yep. So Simona here is another Tzimisce vampire, 5 blood potency, so still up there. It's got dominate and protean.
Yep.
Still possessive. Is possessive a blanket keyword for Simichi? Is it?
It's not on every character,
okay.
but it's on a majority of them. They all it's a strong attribute of this clan. It's like they want to hold on to things. And if you read the lore, it's like they would almost rather die and burn themselves up than to tend to give up something that they possess. So they're really, really, hardcore and obsessive.
It sounds like me in board games.
Yeah, exactly. So so possessive is meant to kind of mimic that a little bit. So this particular character, Simona, she says, detach one face down card from this character, and then you can mend 2 blood on this character or gain 1 prestige. Now, it says face down card. We're going to get into that again when we get into library cards, but there are ways to attach face down cards. It's going to be a form of vicissitude where you're basically modifying your body, and there's obviously and there's obviously other ways in the game to have face down cards on your character. So if
that was my first question was, what ways do we know of that attach face down cards?
Right. Like you can't like, I think on your own detach things like curses and stuff like that. But for the cards that this character has, in the rules that we have for this clan, you'll be able to detach things, especially
like would a wraith count? No.
Because that has the token, but it also has the face down card too. That's a good Matt Hyra question.
Yeah, we can. Well, Hyra will be on some of these preview streams as well. And we can pick his brain because it's always fun making him make on the spot rulings live on stream.
Yeah, but her character is designed specifically to kind of mesh with some of the cards that we provide with this clan in the library, and it'll be obvious when you see those cards.
Sure. And a reminder: you won't see those cards tonight. You'll see them in the coming weeks here.
No, we'll just talk about them in a very vague way in the very first.
And you get to like theory craft. What does this mean? Nikolai here. I like this art. It kind of has like, I don't know, just a very like tough guy look to him. I think it's pretty cool. I like this one when I saw it here.
This art took a little while to get right. We kept wanting the artist to just say like hold off, like try to be a little more intimidating with the finger, and we got as close as we could with it. I think he's pretty decent, like you said. Definitely good facial.
I think it's pretty cool. So again, possessive. And then this one has one of those attacker abilities. If the attack defeats the target, steal 1 retainer from any character in the defending party. And now it does not trigger their attach effects. There was another card that doesn't trigger attach effects. I think it was a Corset Vampire.
You'll see a lot of those with Simichi because they're all about collecting retainers from other characters and other players in order to build up, because they need a lot of retainers to fuel their ghoul armies, and also to just collect things and to build their collection for their completionist agenda. So they have lots of ways of doing that. And we don't want those trigger effects to just constantly be triggering, over and over, especially with cards like playthings and things like that can get out of hand, with the agenda.
That makes sense. And I think Liza is probably the one that I was talking about, which Peter mentioned. You attach one of the defeated character's retainers to a character in this party. Yeah, okay. Liza is a Toreador vampire that can attach things, but this has some pretty cool abilities. He can attack on any of the 3 attributes and be, equally good at it, which makes it kind of nice to be able to play that shell game of what to expect.
Yeah, it's a nice solid spread of attributes.
And yeah, cool art, useful ability, and good stats. Vladislav. This reminds me of this character. One thing I didn't mention before, but I think it's kind of worth mentioning, is like this whole clan kind of evokes, for me at least, the whole archetypical vampire, like Bram Stoker vampire, that you see, on the castle on the hill, in the novel Dracula. So this character kind of is more representative of that character in some way. Obviously looks nothing like what you'd expect Dracula to look like, but just that clan in general kind of gives those vibes. They're like these older clans that are like possessing things. They have their creepy little, estate, up on the hill surrounded by wolves and bats, which are in the game, by the way. I saw that.
So you can play with these clans. You're going to be able to kind of play the younger Zenitsu that they're going to have, different types of housing, which you'll see when we get to the havens, and just build up collecting things. Then you're going to have these older Zenitsu that are more of the elder style, that are kind of have, these something that's been built up over hundreds and hundreds of years, if not longer, where they basically own huge areas of land and sort of become one with that land. Yeah. So Vladislav is one of these guys that kind of reminds me of that. He has 2 physical and 1 social. He has Animalism and Dominate. Of course, Possessive. One of these days we'll see one without Possessive if we haven't already. He has an Exhaust ability. So if you exhaust him, you get to move one non-title attachment you control from one card to another. So this is another example of how you can kind of manipulate the cards in your coterie to kind of move them to where you want them to trigger off of your
completionist.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you can even move retainers to ghouls, for example, just to get them, just to build them up, So it's.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sokatep asks, isn't there a finite number of retainers, though? Aren't they all in the city deck? And the answer for that is yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons that an ability like, I already forgot their name because we've already shown I'm not good with names. Like Nikolai's ability is great because somebody else got to that retainer first, and you can go and get it still, even if you were not the one to initially take it. And then I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, there are other ways to attach cards in this deck that are not necessarily retainers or titles.
That's the point I was making earlier. There's lots of other ways, which you'll see. Now, there are lots of mortals in the city deck, though. Even though it's finite, there's I was counting, and they have 7 citizens and 5 vagrants. That's 12 cards right there. So.
And Total Get is asking card meaning non-characters? Or why does it not say character? That is because we just showed the ghoul. Vose, you can move an attachment to that ghoul.
Yeah, but the ghoul is a character, by the way. If you in the rules for our ghouls count as characters for those types of things. But there are cards you can move cards to that aren't vampires or ghouls. There aren't any kind of character. And you'll see that when we get into the library. But for example, one example is your haven. There's ways to build up your haven with attachments. It's like you're building building up you're upgrading your estate kind of thing.
Are you upgrading your estate by flesh crafting that retainer into a new coffee table or something?
That's one way to look at it, I guess. And there's also
something that somebody mentioned and is a little bit disturbing, but cool.
Yep. And there's ways to just kind of collect things off to the side. There's a secret compartment where you can kind of stash things that you're discarding. So there's lots of ways to collect cards and move them around. We'll get into that later.
Okay, cool. Well, that hopefully is a good answer. And then Tamar Love, looks like you already found it, but yes, this is up for pre-order and it is on both the EU and UK stores, as well as the US store. Valeria here, very classy looking. They got that kind of black tie look.
Yeah.
But some of the things they do, not so nice. So if this one's defeated, you steal a prestige from the attacking player for each card attached to this character. So this one doesn't have possessive, immediately jumps out.
Does not. But you could build her up over time, and if she has a bunch of attachments, you're probably going to not want to defeat her unless you want to lose a bunch of prestige. But that's not going to stop her from being a blocker. You might go after someone else and she might block, and you might be forced to defeat her even if you don't want to. And then you're sad.
And they could lose to this because it is not a cost. So their last prestige could be spent getting stolen from this effect if they're. It's
not a cost. No, it's
Presumably you wouldn't put yourself in that situation, but it's going to happen to somebody, and everybody's going to laugh.
If you see her in the party, you're probably going to. With several attachments, especially, you're probably going to think twice about attacking unless you have a way to avoid blocking, blockers. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I like that. Otherwise, 2 social and then Dominate and Protean.
Yeah. Protean is going to be the discipline that allows you to do all the cool shaping and those types of things.
That makes sense. I think we have a couple more here. The Ghoul Keeper. So we've shown a ghoul. We've talked about him a little bit, but there is this guy really dedicates himself to that.
Is this the only character that doesn't have an actual name? I was curious because when I named him, I thought I'm not going to give a name.
There is Inmate 7452 whatever.
I guess that counts. Yeah.
So. There is. There might be a couple of other ones I don't remember, but there's definitely Inmate.
So he continues that tradition. So this guy, basically, he's going to help you in 2 different ways. First of all, you can just exhaust him to take advantage of him, but he can basically
crazy cat lady.
Yeah, he can heal up. Yeah, exactly. He can heal up one of your ghouls because your ghouls can be attacked and injured. The same way other vampires can. Their health goes down. So he can help injure ghouls, but he can also, and I think this is even more useful, he can actually pull mortals out of the burn pile. So if you have mortals get burned, because if a ghoul gets defeated, any retainers attached get burned.
Okay.
Unless it's a one kind of ghoul, in which case the retainer may get moved from one ghoul to another, but only if you have another ghoul to move it to. But so there might be other ways that you might end up with, mortals in the burn pile, especially with other types of characters and abilities. So this guy he basically will go fish them out for you, so you can shape them into your stuff. And then he would also be useful, I think, with other clans and anyone who wants to use mortals as part of their strategy.
For sure. That's what I was thinking the utility for a Hunt the Hunters deck to pull a burned SAD or Team X out to then defeat them. My other first thought was you could use this to like slow down Horde the Herd people, but I don't think that the mortals are often ending up in the burn pile in that sort of situation. People are probably attaching them, but
even ignoring his ghoul ability, I think he's useful with his secondary feature, which can be even more useful. So
yes,
if you can keep him alive, I mean, he's not the strongest vampire, but he's definitely useful.
Yeah. Matt Lunar pointing out that Smeetsy Wraith playthings looking cool as a way to play these vampires. Oh, and this is the last vampire. I really like this art. Same artist as Nikolai. I don't know. It gives me what's the movie? We don't talk about Bruno. Encanto, like the character, like makes me think Encanto.
No.
Was there a Bruno vampire? Yeah, there's Bruno Wagner. Somebody make a deck called We Don't Talk About Bruno that's got these two in it. So Animalism, 3 cost, no possessive. And it is when this character blocks an attack and is not defeated, you may attach one unattached city deck, citizen, or vagrant in the streets to any character you control.
Yep.
So you said, ghouls are characters. So that's another way to stack bodies on that horrific abomination.
Yeah. So you can see there's a lot of cards, a lot of characters that give you the ability to get retainers, and you don't always have to go out and defeat them. A little spoiler with her art is that wolf that she's petting is actually one of the new animals in the library. So you'll see that. Yeah. Because as whenever we introduce animalism, we always bring in some more animals.
Well, and the Gangrel players will be happy about that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not defeating them. So
not defeating them. So you don't get the benefits of defeating them. You just get to retain them, which has other benefits for this clan.
Yeah, and I think the most significant thing to me is that this happens not on your turn. Like this is off turn gaining.
Exactly.
Gaining retainers.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like that's the thing I don't think we do.
She just has to survive the attack.
True. Yes. So best if it's a mental attack, obviously, but there's other ways to survive. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
And she's going to have control over whether or not she's going to be blocking. So that's something you have agency over. So I'm sure they'll keep that in mind.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the last card we have is the Haven. So the Haven is social housing. Yeah. It has what is largely standard +1 secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Coyote pointing out Dragon's Roost with what's her name, Zoya, as an ability to jump out there and block things when you think it's safe to do so.
Yeah, for sure.
So this lets your leader have +1 attachment.
I should take a second to describe +1 attachment because I don't know if we used that term before this.
I don't think we have. I think we have it. It's bold. So yeah.
Yeah. Attachment is like just shorthand for to represent the number of attachments that you normally have on your vampire. So usually your characters can only have 3 attachments. So +1 attachment is just a quick way of saying you can have 4 attachments. You can have 1 extra than you normally could have. It's a bit easier than saying your leader can have 4 attachments instead of 3 or whatever,
Especially because if you have some other card that might modify it.
Exactly.
Just doing
-1 attachment. Yeah. So, in the future, we might have characters with different levels of attachment so this will just be an easier way to kind of, play around with that with less words. And it says, when you're a leader defeats a city deck mortal, you may move a retainer from a character you control to another character you control. So this is your Haven, and it's giving you this ongoing leader ability to move your characters around, your retainers around. So again, that's just it's like a merry-go-round of cards here. But you can see how that could be useful if you're trying to get 3+ cards attached to this card over here, or build up your ghoul, whichever way you want to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of ways you can get more bodies on that ghoul that we showed at the start. And it makes me very much wonder what the other ghoul does and why I might want to. Now, isn't one of the, I'm just going to pop right back to, so Angela is the draw a card. Nikolai was a 5 blood potency, lets you steal a retainer. So if he's your leader, you can steal a retainer from the party and move someone around with your Haven.
Yeah.
So a lot of control to get those retainers
it
where you want
depends,
them to be.
the leader says specifically defeats a city deck mortal, and if it's not defeating, you might not trigger the leader ability.
Yes, you're right. Also, the Haven is when you're attacking a mortal on its own. Nikolai is when you're attacking a party that has a mortal that you want to steal.
Yeah, so it's a very specific thing. But the point stands that there are ways where you can kind of combo some of this stuff together, if not that particular.
Gautama asking, does this allow you to move the retainer you just attached? So
yes, good question, and the answer is yes. It's even in the FAQ for the rules. So yes, you can, because whenever you have multiple effects happening like that, you can choose the order.
Sure. Speaking of the FAQ rules, we are very close to uploading a updated version of the rules clarification document that one will be a bookmarked PDF with a table of contents and the ability to jump around to everything. And 2, we'll have rolled in all of the rules that are in the back of all the rule books. So not only the things that we have ruled on post-release, but also all the things that are just included in the rule book for extra reference to give you a kind of a one-stop shop for all sort of clarifications. Michael Croker, who is one of the Rivals players and playtesters, has actually done most of the work in putting those all into the PDF so that I can get them all arranged and look really nice. So big shout out to Michael, who is helping with that, but will be his work will be able to be enjoyed by everyone very soon. And then we'll update it when this comes out with all the different clarifications from Dragon and the Rogue. And I think, yes, that is the last card that we're going to show off tonight, just to kind of drip feed some fresh new blood to the community and let them speculate and wonder what else is going to be a part of this deck, because a lot of people seem to have expressed interest in the text abilities, the text boxes of all these vampires, and I think they're seeing ways to use them in existing decks. But of course, we will see what the wider sort of look at it is.
Yeah, especially when we get into the crypt pack and you can see the alternate agenda options and alternate haven options for this particular plan.
Yes. Yep. Well, that's really awesome. I think the plan will be to show the Ravnos characters next week. So, Coyote, I know you've been waiting very patiently. Tune in next week, and we will be going through the same thing, but for the Ravnos. I'm excited to see what the kind of trickster, like what that means in terms of gameplay terms. Like I know a lot of you guys are. You can see the many exclamation points there from Coyote, but I know there's a lot of, like, Ravnos just seems to have a very dedicated fan base. So they've been waiting.
It was a fun one to design. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with that clan, and they're smaller vampires, are younger, so you had to give them sneakier ways to deal with their adversaries. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be here next week because it's my anniversary. So Hyra is going to be here to talk about Ravnos for me, and I know he'll do a great job.
And everybody, if you have a really weird esoteric question, that's the kind that Matt likes to get. So save those for him.
Save them for him.
And definitely, don't spend your anniversary hanging out with us, Dan. So just a quick reminder, everybody, this Dragon and the Rogue 5th expansion is up for pre-order, started this morning. You can get your alternate art promos for pre-ordering. We do have those upcoming Prince of the City events still. So if you are near Madrid, Brussels, Manchester, or Magdeburg, Germany, get signed up, get out there and have a good time. Still a chance to be made into a vampire of your own. And we will have, you'll have a great time at those. I've heard really just positive experiences from 99% of players who've attended those. And I really would love to see more fresh faces come out to all these different tournaments. The new OP kits just arrived in our US warehouse. So if you've ordered those, you can expect them to start shipping very, very soon. Those are bigger and better than the first round, they have 8 copies of each card instead of just 4, and 2 copies of the kind of the winner's prize, which are acrylic tokens in this case, instead of playmats. And yeah, talk to your local store if you want to get those running in your community. If they cannot order them, they should be able to get them through distribution. If they cannot find them or have any issues, they can reach out to me directly and I'll get them hooked up like I have for other stores. And Jason Conlin asking about Clan Clash kit. I think that should be able to available for stores to order starting next week. Just waiting on a couple of the last things I need to put those actually together. And that Clan Clash is our sort of store championship model. It's pretty much any store who wants to run it can run one. They support up to 16 players, and the winner is the primogen of that store. So another way to get a title. It's not Prince, it's not just a card, but hey, it is a start and a way to kind of work your way up the hierarchy and the hierarchy of the vampires. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks Dan, especially for jumping on. I know the last time you joined us was, I think, Wolf and the Rat, right? Because you did that
Wolf
one
and
too.
the Rat. Yep. It's been a while.
So I hope it was a fun return to Rivals and
it was
kind of changing it up in a very, very different setup of what these vampires are doing. Peter, there will be an article with the Clan Clash information right when we launch the pre-orders. So keep an eye out for that. That should be next week. And everyone else, have a great night and tune in to Katie. It's the Nightlife tonight, right? Another episode of the Nightlife. Yes, at 7 p.m. Pacific. So that is our Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition live play RPG show. If you've not watched it, they had a great cast. It's Vampires in Miami. So pretty awesome. But Dan, thank you. Have an excellent night. And we will see everybody else next week.